So, hi everyone. Welcome to By Design with Dr. Erika, a show focused on highlighting amazing women who are stepping out of the box, saying screw the expectations of society, and basically living the life that they want and the life that they were designed for. Today on our show, we are joined by a powerhouse. We have Lynn Power. Now, Lynn has spent 30 years in the advertising world as an advertising executive, most recently as the CEO of J. Walter Thompson, New York. But recently, she has ventured out into the world of entrepreneurship and startup life, and she is taking the world of beauty by storm. In February, she launched MASAMI, a unique premium hair care brand. Now, we will get into what's unique about that brand as we go on, so be sure to stay tuned and stay with us. So, Lynn, welcome to the show.
I think that was one of the best intros I've heard. That was amazing. And I love this whole designing your life perspective. It's so true and so relevant, I think, for so many women today.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for the compliment. I mean, I had to put in the powerhouse. Your last name is Power.
I know. I do hear that. I do hear that often. And sometimes I'm like, no, it's like I'm powerless sometimes, not powerful, but it's okay. It's all good.
We have those moments, right? But we
have those moments.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have you here on the show. You know, our show, I interview so many different types of women from so many different walks of life.
Yeah.
But what they always have in common is that they have this interesting sort of winding road from where they started to where they are.
Yes.
And I think you are no different in that process in terms of sort of how you started your career. Can you sort of let the audience in on a little bit of background of where Lynn was in the beginning of her career?
Way back in the day.
Yeah. Only 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. Only a couple years ago, right. So yeah, I wish, but yeah, no, but it was back. So I started my career in 1989, a little more than 10 years ago. But I had no intention of getting into advertising. I didn't study for it. I was actually an English and criminal justice major. I was thinking of going to law school, and then I decided that was a really bad idea. And yeah, it just was not my thing. And then I ended up getting a job, my first job as a receptionist at an ad agency. And I loved this whole notion of leveraging creativity to solve business problems. Like that's what the ad industry is all about if you work in a creative, business. So it was the perfect solution for me because it sort of allowed me to use both sides of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And you also, the other benefit is you get to work on loads of different kind of businesses. So you're never bored because, one day you're dealing with Pizza Hut, the next day you're dealing with who knows what, beauty, fabric softener. I've worked on tampons. I've worked on just about anything you can imagine, right? So yeah, your life is never boring when you work in advertising. So I did it for a long time. I found it really fulfilling for a while. It had its moments because, when I started, as I mentioned a long time ago, I won't repeat the year. I don't keep torturing myself. But it was a very male dominated industry, and it still is, frankly.
Okay.
But, so there were definitely moments along the way, or hiccups, whatever you want to call them. But I stuck with it, and it was a really good career for me for a really long time until I just decided, why am I doing this for other people?
Right. No,
Enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on something you just said. You said it's really male dominated, and it still is. Why do you think it's so male heavy in that space?
I think nobody's ever asked me that, like why it was like that to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting question. But if you've ever watched Mad Men,
that's my husband's, one of his favorite shows. I've seen 30 minutes of a show.
Okay. It's a great show because it gets you into that mindset and headspace of what it was like then. And there's a lot of truth to it, I think. But I think a lot of these icons of the industry, back in the day when I started, there were these almost like celebrity ad agency people, like David Ogilvy, like Jay Chiat, like these people that were like on par with like Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Like they were that type of So, and they were almost always men.
Mm.
And it's like it was almost like the formula back then was you just had to be like charismatic and a little bit controversial, say things out there that would be, the consumer isn't stupid, she's your wife. That was a famous David Ogilvy quote. Like you had to be this character.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of these big name advertising guys were exactly that. They were these characters. So I worked at J. Walter Thompson for a really long time, and there was a J. Walter Thompson. It was the oldest ad agency in the world. Okay, 150 something years old, but that was a real person. And in his day, he was like exactly like that. He was this character, and so I think that was how the industry was sort of framed or created, was with the swagger. Like, which is a very kind of male thing. And I think we've learned, hopefully, as the industry has evolved and progressed, that leadership actually could be more effective with a little empathy and with a little listening and vulnerability. Who knew? But I think these guys were more concerned about building their own. It was their own ego that was driving things, and it was their own, whatever you want to call it, brand. They were building their own brand and their own name and their own thing. And that's how the industry started. Today we don't really have those kind of people in the business, arguably. I mean, there are a few, maybe like David Droga is kind of like that, but it's almost like the business has now just become a business, not like these. Anyway, that's just my rambling about why it is. I've never really thought about it like that.
That was just when you said that, that's like the first question that popped in my head. So I digress.
Yeah.
So you were saying, you were working for a company and you were like, why am I doing this for everyone else except for myself? So why did you stay? Like, what was the hesitancy in working for them and getting to that point? Like, what was your thought process, I guess?
Well, I enjoyed the business for a really long time, and I'd worked my way up to, I was president of Arnold in their New York office, and did that for 8 years and really loved it because we had a really nice culture and people, and we just really enjoyed our jobs. And then when I went to J. Walter Thompson and I was the CEO, you get to a point where you realize that having the top job is not that fun. Okay, not everybody thinks that way, but for me, it's a different job. You're not doing the things that you love to do when you got in the business, which to me was building brands and thinking about creativity and, getting your hands into a brand and actually talking about the strategy and figuring stuff out. So I was sort of removed from all that. I was dealing with HR and finance and legal and, the not fun stuff. And we had a very public Me Too lawsuit that really kicked off the Me Too movement in advertising that I was left to clean up. And that was a good 2 years of my life. And so I just kind of decided I'm not having fun anymore.
Right.
And the point about if I'm going to go back to building a brand, why would I not want to do it for myself? Right. Instead of helping all of my clients get rich. So that's why I kind of had that moment. Now, for me, it happened later in life. I mean, I was 50.
Okay.
When I decided to do that. I always encourage people, if you're not happy, don't wait so long, Now I was, okay, in fairness, I was happy with my situation up until I was 48 years old. So it wasn't like I was dealing with a bad situation for 10 years. But there are a lot of people I know that don't like their jobs. They're in complacent kind of situations. They feel well, it's a paycheck. And it's I just feel bad. It's no, you could actually have so much more.
Yeah. I kind of fall into that bucket.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did. My job was fine. Like you said, it paid the bills. I enjoyed some aspects of it, but I felt like I didn't fit per se. Like my personality and kind of my skill set didn't really fit.
You were in the corporate world, right?
I was, yeah.
So, and you were in, if I remember, healthcare or pharma, right?
I was in pharma.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So 16 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah. But to your point, it was more of the fear of what am I going to do, or what would people say, or I'm a pharmacist. I can't do anything else. Like that would be stupid, you know. So
Right.
did you have any of those thoughts when you were thinking about sort of heading out on your own?
No, because what had happened when I was at Arnold, um, 7.5 of the 8 years were awesome. And then the 6 months was awful because they had brought a new CEO in
Mhm.
and he was really bad, like terrible. And the business started tanking and like people were unhappy. And I was fighting with him because I was like the only person sort of on the leadership team that was brave enough to like contradict him openly and question things. And so my husband at the time had said to me, why are you doing that? Just leave, just quit. And I was like, I could quit? Like, that's an option.
Right.
So it was that realization at that moment that I knew I could like do what, okay, if I could just quit and do what I want, I'll go take the job at J. Walter Thompson. And if I hate it, I'll just do that. I'll just leave, you know? So it's liberating to think that way. But I will say it's also a function of when you have worked as long as I have, and my husband too, because we met at Ogilvy, um, you're not so focused on the paycheck,
Mhm.
you know? So hopefully you will have invested some of your money and have some savings. And then it just liberates you to be able to not worry about that aspect so much
Mhm.
and focus more on what you really want to do. And I understand how lucky I was to have that ability because not everybody can, right? A lot of people
Right.
don't, they're in a position where the money is the most important thing. And that unfortunately makes you make decisions that maybe are not as good for your sanity or
Right.
your happiness, but you have
Exactly.
to make the decisions you have to make at the time, right?
Yeah. So then, it's almost going back to your point about, you said that you waited a little while till you were in
Yeah.
your 50s. So in a way, that was perfect for you because you did
Yeah.
have the savings and that cushion to sort of tide you over. So I think you did it perfectly for you.
You know what? You're right. It's true. It's just that from like, maybe I'm just still feeling um, other people's opinions
Mm,
because I definitely feel there's an ageism thing out there where, if you're an older founder, there are definitely people that appreciate experience and wisdom. Don't get me wrong,
right.
but that's the minority.
Mm,
I found my own personal experience. I think most people gravitate to these 25-year-old, super cool millennial / Gen Z founders that, can raise multi-million dollars just because they say they have this cool thing. And that's the only reason I'm reacting to like, don't wait so long,
mhm.
is because I've definitely bumped my head into the ageism thing a bit.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
and I feel young. I have so much energy. I don't feel my age at all, but people on paper
Yeah.
will make judgments about you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
true. That's
you know,
true. Okay. So now you kicked off Masami, if I recall right,
yeah.
earlier this year, like around February-ish, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So that was like the very beginning of our quarantine, our lockdown, our
Yeah.
situation that we're in right now. How did that work out? Like, that's a little bit of strange timing to happen.
It was definitely strange timing, but it was also at the time that we launched, we didn't know obviously what things were gonna,
Hmm.
how it was gonna all unfold. And we launched at New York Fashion Week. We had 2 shows. So we sat there in these little tiny, runway shows where all these people were jammed into a room. And
Hmm.
one of the shows was over capacity. It was like people, the landlord was coming down and yelling at the host because there were too many people. And then just a few weeks later, there's quarantine. So, that was definitely one of those things that's like, wait a minute, this is serious. Okay, wow, now we're going to have to be quarantined for a few weeks at the time, right? That's what you thought. And then also it was like, okay, now it's 3 months. And now I still feel kind of like, now with this resurgence, like, do we really want to be going out,
Yeah.
So it was definitely weird timing to launch a business, but at the same time, there's a lot of interest in people sort of detoxing what's in and on their bodies and being healthier, I think, because of COVID.
Gotcha.
Just a little bit more awareness, and that's good for us because we are a clean hair care brand where we've, no sulfates, parabens, or phthalates, which are the
Mm.
three big baddies.
So
We,
no sulfates, no, what were the other two?
no parabens,
Mhm.
no phthalates.
No phthalates, okay.
Yeah, those are sort of the ones everyone can agree on are bad. There's lots of other ingredients that some people say are bad and some people don't, and you're always sort of depending on whose list you go by, but those are the big ones that you don't want to have in your stuff. And unfortunately, most of the hair care brands in the US market still have those in there. 90% of the brands still have one of those in there, one or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is what makes MASAMI unique, is the cleanness of it.
No, I would say what makes us unique, that's one thing for sure,
Uh-huh.
but what makes us unique is the fact that we're clean and high performing, because a lot of clean products are super unfulfilling from a performance perspective as a consumer.
Okay.
Because there's a reason those chemicals are in our products. They actually help the performance and help you get what you want. And US consumers are so used to suds, sudsing up, and suds are actually really bad for you. It's detergent,
That's how I know I'm washing it right.
I know. Well, you're like everybody else. Okay. So don't feel like it's you. That's how we've been trained to like squeaky clean, which is actually really bad for you. So, what we did is we decided, okay, we want to make sure our products are really high performing, take out those bad ingredients. And the reason we were able to figure out how to do it took my partner 10 years of development, by the way. So this was not an overnight thing. This was like years of working on this. But we have this Japanese ocean botanical, which is what really makes us unique. And it is all about hydration.
Okay.
So we infuse our products with this powder that we get from Northeast Japan, which makes the products perform incredibly well. And we're also able to take the bad stuff. So that's sort of our sweet spot is that combination of you don't have to worry about what's in there and it works.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
It working is a very key part of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are people that just want clean and they're not so focused on the works, but that's a minority. I think most of us want products that perform and do something that we need. And hydration is the number one issue that most people need, which is not that surprising if you think about it. I mean, our climate is getting hotter. It's just an ongoing, I always am my husband's always yelling at me to drink more water because I'm not a big water drinker, and stay hydrated and all that stuff. But when you solve hydration for people when it comes to hair, usually their other hair complaints get solved. Like their hair's more manageable, it's shinier, it's healthier, it tends to have more volume. Hydration is sort of the root cause or the root sort of solution even to get people to feel like they can have good hair days every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to have to drink more water and look at my hair and my products and see if it suds up or not. Need to fix it.
I mean, I will say our products are low suds. We didn't take all the suds out completely, but we found alternative ingredients to create a little bit of sudsing, because for the reason that you said earlier, it's what people like and that's how they know that it's working. But you don't get the squeaky clean. It's like you get a little sudsing. It's very thick. I just think it's one of those things that going back to the ad industry sort of train people in certain ways to think about certain categories the way that we do, and we have to untrain people now.
Okay, I have
retrained maybe.
Strange question, because we're talking about the suds of the products. Don't think I'm crazy. What's the smell like?
Oh no, that's not crazy at all. People care about that a lot. Trust me. Especially for hair. I think you can have clean skincare and not have scented products, and that's good. But for hair care, people want a little bit of they want to feel like there's a little scent, and they want to
Yeah.
feel like, so our scent is not overpowering, but it's a clean, fresh scent, and it's based on Casablanca lilies.
Mm.
And fragrance is also one of those tricky things that can be a culprit for being a dirty ingredient, because a lot of fragrances have phthalates in there. And because you don't have to list what's in the fragrance when you put it on your package,
Hmm.
you can, sometimes fragrance can be quite dirty, but we made sure that our fragrance was naturally derived and phthalate free. So I think the fragrance is really important. And I didn't mention this yet, but our products are gender neutral.
Okay.
So when we were creating the products, the packaging, the fragrance and everything, that was part of the consideration too. Like, we want a fragrance that doesn't smell too feminine or too flowery or too perfumey, because we want men to feel just as good about it. And I would say right now about 40% of our purchases are men.
Hmm.
I don't even know where they find us, because it's a little odd. We haven't really targeted men, but
Huh.
but I would say I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the scent from men as well. So
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Huh. Now, I want to go back to something you said, because you mentioned sort of in passing, your partner had been working on this for 10 years.
Yes.
And I want to touch on that because we introduced you as the CEO, of this company, but you didn't do this alone, right? You have sort of.
No, in fact, so James and I are co-founders.
Okay.
So I'm the CEO and he's the Chief Innovation Officer.
Okay.
And what his superpower is being able to research, conceive, and visualize these formulations. He's already working on 3 new products for us. And his process is awesome to watch him work, because he basically will experiment with lots and lots of different ingredients. And he's not a chemist and he's not an R&D guy. But
so what's his background?
So he was like an Uber producer in the hair care business for Clairol for about 20 years, where what he dealt with was the models and the photographers and all that stuff.
Okay.
But he was the one that the models would complain to after he colored their hair to do a shoot, and then you have to color it back to their natural colors so they can go on, that was the contract at the time, and their hair would be fried. And so, he would always get the crying models at the end of the shoot saying, oh my God, like, I can't work for a month because look at my hair. Like, this is awful. And trying to find products that would actually help them. But the products were always quick fixes. They weren't long-term hair health fixes. They were just, and so he just had this passion. And then he went to Japan because he's married to Masa, who's our muse, hence MASAMI, which also is really beautiful, but that's the name. He went to Japan with Masa, his husband, and was really inspired by the health, saw how healthy people are there and what they eat and what they do and their routines, and started experimenting with this Japanese ocean botanical called Mikabu, and putting that in our products. And we also figured out that if we put it in as powder, not as an extract, which most brands use extracts for their ingredients, we could get more active ingredient in there and sort of deliver the benefit even better. But this was all him tinkering around. And then he found a chemist in Chicago who's wonderful. And of course, he has a great relationship with them because they've been working together for so long, but he will literally call her and go, what about this ingredient? What about this? Can we use this instead of this? So she's clearly the expert, but he knows enough to be dangerous. And he does a lot of research and he does a lot of his own trial and error. And in fact, for one of our new products in development, he's sending me 5 different batches that he cooked up in his kitchen to try. And I'm going to be me and a bunch of other people are going to be testing them to see, but that's just what he does. And then when he gets it to a point where he thinks he's got something, he'll send it over to the chemist and let them really make it good, because he doesn't know, he's not putting in things that you do need in the products. He's just tinkering with ingredients that he thinks could be beneficial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
does. And I asked that question because a lot of people think sometimes I have to do it on my own, or, I don't have, they're looking for a team, but maybe they haven't found a team. They try to do it on their own, or they may be afraid that I'm in this box. Whereas with him, it would have been the producer box. Why would I, why would anyone believe that I can do anything else outside of that box? So why would I even start to tinker with these different ingredients to make something new? So I think it's amazing that he kind of saw this vision and felt that he could do something else and be beneficial in some other way beyond what he's known for. So,
Absolutely. And I think if you know him, he just has this real passion for hair.
mhm.
He's bald, ironically. Um, but, it takes a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Commitment, resilience to stick with it for that long on your own. And when I met him, he had gotten the formulas pretty far along with the chemists. They were maybe 80, 85% there. And we just did a little tweaking to clean them up a little bit more. But where the partnership really works, to your point about not having to do it alone, is that we're like a really beautiful Venn diagram where we each have our own superpowers, but then we meet in the middle on a common vision. And it's just been an awesome sort of yin yang, because I'm the business and brand and marketing person, and he is this passionate hair R&D looking to see what's next, and it's just been fantastic.
Right.
So I would say to anyone who's thinking about, like, okay, doing it on your own is really hard, but think about the partner and what you need in that partner as a complementary skill set to you. Because I've met a number of, I've done a lot of consulting with startups, a number of founders where the people have a tendency sometimes to find somebody who's a clone of them.
Right.
And that can work, but I think it's more powerful if you find somebody who complements you,
Right.
who can bring skills you don't have.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know what I mean?
It's like a marriage almost.
Yeah. Right.
Compliments you. Yeah. Okay. And so that's interesting that you say, the Venn diagram and you guys sort of complementing each other, because I saw a very interesting tidbit about you. And I
Oh.
wanted, I
Uh-oh.
wanted to ask you about it.
Okay.
I saw somewhere that you, I guess, define yourself as a learned introvert.
A learned extrovert, actually.
Extrovert, I'm sorry, learned extrovert. And
Yes.
I found that very interesting because, being in business and being in advertising, how did you make that happen to become this learned extrovert? Because I imagine that's what you have to be in this space.
You have to. I mean, I can't point to any one thing that I did,
Mm-hmm.
but I was definitely incredibly introverted growing up. Like, I would break out in hives if I had to do a presentation in front of the class. Like, I was not the person to raise my hand in class ever. Like, I just was very, very introverted. And my daughter, who's 17, has that plus anxiety and depression. Like, and I feel her because I know what that's like to just, want to shrink into yourself and not be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, when you work in advertising, that you can't do that. So especially if you have career ambitions, which I did. So I just, at the beginning, you're doing so much executional stuff that you're not the person on the, in the front and center having to do the presentations and all that, but you see people do it, you absorb it, you're like a sponge, you see what works, you see, people's techniques. And then I remember one of the first times I had to do a presentation, I was maybe 25. So I'd been around the business a couple years, but like not really doing it myself. And I was really, really bad. Like my face broke, like I turned bright red. Like it was really embarrassing. Like, and I just was stuttering and I couldn't do it. And it was because it was in front of about 50 clients. And to me, it was just mortifying. And I really thought, like, that was one of those moments where you go, maybe this isn't for me, like, and my boss was so great because he said, oh, you'll be better next time. And I was like, next time? You'd be kidding me. I have to do this again? And then once I kind of realized I have to do this again, then you just have to like figure out how to psych yourself up. And I did take a presentation course back in the day, which, you know, helps because they just help you sort of almost see yourself as an out of body thing and not like, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
see yourself how the audience sees you. And so just doing things like that. And then so you get to the point where you can kind of like get by and be okay. But I think when I really figured out like management and leadership was when I had, can I swear or no?
Go ahead.
Okay. I had like a fuck it attitude about emulating what I thought CEOs should be.
Ah.
Because ooh, you okay? Because up until then, like all of my bosses were men and the CEOs, not all my bosses, but a lot of my bosses and the CEOs of the companies were all men, pretty much. Other than Shelley Lazarus at Ogilvy. But there was this sort of expectation of what that type of leadership looked like. And that's completely not me. Like, it is like, I just, I'm not like that at all. So I had a point in my career where I just kind of decided I'm just going to be myself and I'm going to do things the way I want to do it. And I'm not going to sort of fit that conventional mold. And again, it was like, fuck it. If people don't like it, okay, then, you know, this is the best I'll do in my career. And it's pretty decent. I think I was like a group account director at the time running a piece of business. But then I was like, but you know what? It makes me feel better about the way I'm running things. And if it works, great.
Right.
So I think that's always a lesson for people too, because they look above them and they see those role models and they think they have to act like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's in, like, you know, to your point, in every career, you feel like even in different roles, whether it be an employee, a wife, a mother, it's always like, this is how I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
Because everyone else around me is doing it that way. And that's not life. Find your own way. Find what works for you.
Exactly.
It's not going to be the same across the board. So I think that's awesome.
I know, it's so easy. It sounds so obvious and easy when you say it, but it's like, it's hard when you're in it because you do feel the pressure to sort of conform to these norms. But not always healthy, right?
Right. Okay, cool. So now, is this your first startup? Is MASAMI your first startup?
Well, when I left the advertising business, I started a brand consultancy.
Right. Okay.
Where I was working with startups actually. And then about 6 months in, I met my partner James on MASAMI. So MASAMI is my first like brand I've launched on my own.
Okay.
If that's what you mean. And then we also actually are launching, I have another business that I have an amazing, amazing CEO running. Her name's Veronica Armstrong. You should interview her, by the way.
Okay. Veronica, we're coming for you, Veronica.
We're coming for you, Veronica. It's amazing. And that business is a luxury home fragrance company with a beeswax candle is sort of our hero product. And that's soft launching now and we'll be launching kind of later this year.
That is like my heart. I love candles.
Oh, you would love this product. So Veronica, yes. So that, the interesting thing about that is MASAMI was the first one out of the gate. The candle business is like I said, about 6 months behind, but we're using a lot of the same playbook, if you will, that we're doing for MASAMI for the candle.
Okay, gotcha.
And Veronica is involved in both, although she's the CEO. She runs the candle company.
Gotcha.
She just helps me on the side with my hair care.
Okay. So in doing that, you know, that brings me to a good point because you had MASAMI and now you're doing your second sort of startup. What's the biggest learning that you got from launching MASAMI that you're now going to take into the candle startup?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say the biggest learning, well, first of all, getting the right team is critical. That is definitely something that I've leaned into heavily because if you don't have the right people around you, it's just really, really hard. But the learning is more around the ability to be flexible and adapt because we launched in COVID, right? And when we launched, we were talking to salons. We were trying to get into some retailers because I really think people want to touch and smell, to our point earlier about the scent,
right?
Beauty products. And, so we had to pause all those efforts because obviously salons weren't open, really focus on DTC, focus on customer acquisition, focus on our current customers, focus on content, build out our social, which is all stuff we needed to do anyway. But then we had to kind of pivot back once things started to open, and we got this really great partnership now with Spoke and Wheel, which I'm super stoked about.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but that's probably been the biggest thing, was like just having enough wiggle room in your plan to be able to flex. Because that, you know, when we launched, we had a game plan.
Right.
And you kind of just want to stick to the game plan because that's what you've been thinking about. And it's like, that's just not the world these days. And I think more and more it's going to turn into this like, oh, this other thing just happened that we didn't know about. Maybe Zoom gets hacked. We're talking about all the, you know, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, now I have to deal with that. So there's just all, you know, there's just going to be these things that are unpredictable. Mm-hmm. That I think as a business, you just got to figure out how to deal with. And that's been the lesson, I guess, is be open and flexible and be willing to veer if you need to, not completely away from your vision, of course, but like to deal with the climate and the, you know, the world around us.
Right. Okay. Good. Be flexible, get your team, and be adaptable. I like that.
Yeah.
Those are 3 key things. Okay. Now, we're talking about the world of beauty and MASAMI.
Yeah.
So tell us, I imagine the product line is probably pretty vast. What products do you have available now for the audience?
So we only have 4 key products. We have shampoo, conditioner, shine serum, and a styling cream. Mm-hmm. Our belief was that the shampoo and conditioner market has become incredibly complicated for consumers to navigate. And I worked on L'Oreal and I worked on Nexus. I worked on some brands that contributed to the proliferation of SKUs, meaning like the way that big brands would grow, and you know this from working in pharma, you know, you needed more shelf space. How do you get more shelf space? Okay, well now we're going to have the version for color treated hair. Now we're going to have the version for shine. Now we're going to have the version for moisture. And we were kind of like, wait a minute, that is not consumer friendly. It makes no sense, actually. People want products where they get all those benefits. You don't want to have to choose. Right. Our products are safe for color treated hair. They obviously deliver massive hydration. They add shine, they add volume. They, you know, they give you everything you want. And so we purposely, I'm just saying all this to explain, we purposely will only ever have one shampoo and conditioner.
Okay.
Like
it'll make life so much easier.
Right? Like we're not going to launch the version that's for curly hair or the version that's for whatever hair. So it's like, we just made that decision that that's going to be our philosophy, which is also very Japanese. They're very sort of Zen and, you know, believe in simplicity. And it's hard to be simple, actually, because then the bar is higher, but if you can figure that out. So when we talk about expansion, we're not going to be creating more shampoos and conditioners. We're going to be creating different types of products that solve different issues, whether it's scalp, something for, you know, beard, you know, because we are gender neutral, you know, things like that are going to, you know, actually help and provide other solutions.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So 4 products. Awesome.
But we do have trial size of the 4 as well. So we've got the 4, and then we have a little travel kit we sell.
Okay, perfect. Now, I know people that are trying to sort of break into the beauty space, whether it be with lotions or lip things. Is it difficult to break into that space as opposed to other spaces?
It's just super crowded.
So
almost anyone can create a lip balm or whatever you want to create. You just need to have a little money. Mm-hmm. And it's not crazy amounts, but you need to be able to, you know, get the products made, find a chemist or a manufacturer, create packaging. And then you have to create your, whatever, if you're going to be sold online, your website and your marketing. I mean, I am super scrappy the way we've done it. Like, we did our website ourselves. Okay. I spent maybe $1,000 getting a little tiny bit of tweaks to the code.
The website that's up now, you did yourself?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it looks great.
Thank you. But like, I think people underestimate their own ability to do some of this stuff is my point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you go into Shopify, which is where our site is built, they've got all these templates. Not everybody wants to use that, but you can make it look like your own. And other than customizing for certain things that you want to do, which we did a little bit, but you know, you can pretty much do it. Like, you don't need to know code is my, you know, is the point. You can be like me, like somebody who doesn't know how to code, but I can still go into Shopify and add images, add a blog, like I can do the things that we need to do. So I think that's becoming, it's just going to get easier and easier for the lay person to do that as things evolve.
Gotcha.
So my point, you don't need to have crazy amounts of money for that kind of stuff. I'd say, like, if you're thinking of launching a business, make sure you understand the brand, the foundation, the story, the values of your company. Those things are really important because everything kind of flows out from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then spend your money on the products first and foremost.
Gotcha. Okay. So you don't need a venture capitalist to go out.
No, we're self-funded. We don't have any investors.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, at some point, you know, would we take investment money if it made sense? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
With hopefully a strategic investor, not just somebody who's going to give me money and torture me about the business.
Right. Okay. So since leaving corporate and now having 2 startups under your belt,
yeah,
how has your life changed? Like, what's one of the biggest things that you are loving about life right now that you may not have had?
Oh, well, I love my flexibility. So I have been doing yoga every morning.
Oh, wait, what kind of yoga?
Okay. So I found this, you may know it, but there's this woman named Adrienne, and she does Yoga by Adrienne on YouTube.
Okay.
And what I love about it is she does these 30-day yoga journeys. And they're about a half an hour long, each video. So they're not like, you don't have to carve out so much of your day that it becomes a burden. And I've been really enjoying it. So I've done like 3 back to back. I just keep doing them.
Oh, wow.
So I have the flexibility now, like where I try to do it first thing in the morning, but like today I got up a little bit just before our call. So I'll do it after, but like that flexibility. And then the other thing that I've loved is, well, I love wearing lots of different hats, whether it's like I'm answering somebody's Instagram question or I'm, you know, talking to a retailer or whatever. But I also like being able to work from anywhere, which is obviously nice during COVID, but I'm in New York City right now. We're going to be in California later in the year. And I like that flexibility too, to actually like spend 2 months if I want to, you know, it's not just a short vacation. It's like, no, I actually am going to spend 2 months in California,
right.
You know, and be able to do that. So I could never do if I was working at JWT ever.
Yeah. I think it's always important because a lot of times when people are thinking about changes, whether it be career or whatever, we always tend to focus on what could go wrong, or like we say, the fears associated with it. But I think it's important to think about what could your life look like if you did that thing, and having that flexibility to be in California and being able to do yoga whenever you feel like it in the morning, you know, so.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And it feels very liberating. Now, the flip side, point, counterpoint kind of thing, is that as an entrepreneur, you're always on. You know, if somebody is annoyed and it's Saturday at 10 p.m., you're dealing with that, you know?
Yep.
So that's but that doesn't happen that often.
Right. No, that is a good point. There is that flip side. And really beginning your entrepreneur sort of journey, I found it difficult at first. Like I was working every day, like hours upon hours. And
like weekends mean nothing, right? You're
right. But in the beginning, that's how it happens. But eventually it kind of tapers down and you kind of find your rhythm. But knowing that that's going to happen and being okay with that.
Well, and also just making sure you sort of have sanity checks, because it's true for the first 6 months, like weekends were just the same as every other day for me. And you do get to a point where you're like, wait a minute, I actually do need some downtime.
Right.
Like, this isn't good that I'm constantly working. So you have to force yourself sometimes. Like, yeah.
And at first I felt bad. I remember the first day I took a half day, I felt bad, but I'm like, why am I feeling bad? I'm my boss. Like,
right. Like, who are you feeling bad to or for or whatever? Yeah, I know.
So yeah, cool. All right, cool. Well, any last like great tip or suggestion that you would have for someone that's ready to sort of start this journey?
I would say network like crazy, because that's something that's helped me a lot. I'm part of several female founder groups.
Okay.
And it just helps you shortcut things. Somebody will give you a tip to use this, plug in on Shopify or do this on social. And it just helps.
Gotcha.
And sometimes people just want to vent, and it's
Right.
nice to have, that too. So I would say network like crazy. I meet so many interesting different people all the time, because you never know where there's a connection or where you can help someone else too.
Right.
And I take a lot of satisfaction in trying to help other people figure stuff out as well.
Yeah.
So that would be my tip, is like, don't wait until you think you have like your story all nailed and everything figured out. It's like, just start meeting people.
Yeah. Okay. Did you find those founders groups like on LinkedIn, on Facebook? How did you find those groups?
Great question. There are a couple that you can join as a member. There's one I just joined that's brand new. I think I actually found her through the Facebook group, but it's called Pailor, Pailor.
PAI. Okay.
LOR.
Gotcha.
And that's a good one. We're part of DOE, which is another female founder thing.
Is it or like DOUGH?
DOUGH.
Okay.
I'm part of Rise Her. That's another one. And then there's a bunch of Facebook groups that you can join. I'm on 4 or 5. I can't even remember what they're all called, like female founder.
Gotcha.
Something, but those have been really helpful too, because a lot of times people will post, hey, I've got this business I'm doing that's X, Y, and Z. Yes. Anyone want to partner with me? Or, you just find interesting connections.
That's true. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I might have to look at some of those myself.
Yeah, no, definitely. What I like about I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, Pailor, is they basically have a vision where they're going to put people in groups of, I can't remember, it's like 6 or 8 people that will be your like posse. And you'll meet with those people however often, every month or something. And that's your group that you can really lean on, which I like, having that consistent team. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Like that smaller group, you get a lot, I feel like you can become a lot more connected and just, you get a lot more out of it sometimes than just the bigger audience, which can be helpful, but that sort of intimate connection there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information and your story. Now, I can't let you leave until we do our Fab 4. It's something we do for every guest. Is that okay?
Of course. Go for it.
All right. It's basically first thing that comes to your mind and simple questions.
Okay.
So the first one, if you had one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I think I'd probably want to read people's minds.
Really?
It just would save so much time. Then you know what people really think, and you're like, okay, fine, I won't bother with that. I'll move on.
Okay. That's true.
My life a lot easier. I'd probably find out a lot of things I didn't want to know.
Maybe.
I guess that would be the downside, but I think it would make my life easier.
Okay. That's the first.
Oh, if I could, actually, I would like to read my dog's minds. I would wonder what they're thinking.
That would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I would like.
All right, question 2. If you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
That's a really hard one. I have a house in Palm Springs, and they're very fascinated with the Brat Pack and Marilyn Monroe. So I would say Marilyn Monroe, because I would love to know, I don't know, her life seems so interesting, but so sad at the same time and so tragic. So, and then I'd throw JFK in there just because why not see that dynamic play out? And then I'd probably want my dad to show up because he died 2 years ago. So having one more dinner with him, that would be nice.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Marilyn, JFK, and your dad. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
It
it.
would be interesting, that's for sure.
All right. If you had to pick a song to represent your life, so essentially like a theme song for your life,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Well, I grew up with 80s music. Like, so that's sort of my jam. And I have to remind my teenage daughter, who's 17, that there were emos before there were emos. Like, you know, she loves emo music. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, we were emos first.
Uh-huh.
We just didn't call it that.
Right.
So I would have to pick a Liz Phair song because that's like one of my favorite people ever. And I think she writes a lot of songs that are not appropriate. But I would probably pick Extraordinary because I feel like, you know, you got to boost yourself up and feel that way. And why not? Like, we're all amazing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would pick.
Okay. Liz Phair, Extraordinary.
Yeah.
All right. The last one is like multifold. I know it makes no sense, but hey, just finish the following statements. I love
My dogs and Chicago pizza.
Okay.
I do.
I dream of
Waking up in a villa in Italy.
Oh. Okay, I had to visualize that for a
Put
second.
yourself there.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Italy, so yeah. All right. Last one, I am
definitely wearing a mask because I am still a little COVID worried.
right. Okay. I like that. I have them too, but I keep losing them in the washing machine
Me too. I've lost like 3 of them so far. It's annoying, but yes.
All right. Love it. Lynn, thank you so much for taking time today. If people want to find out more about MASAMI or purchase some MASAMI, where can they go? Where can they stay connected with you and the brand?
They can go to our website, which is lovemasami.com, LOVEMASAMI.com. They can find MASAMI on any social handle, because we're on all of them, at any social channel, I should say, with the handle at Love Masami Hair.
Okay.
And then I'm on LinkedIn, of course, but I'm also on all the social channels as Lynn Powered. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Any last thoughts or anything you want to share before we start to wrap up?
No, but I love the conversation. Thank you. You clearly have a talent for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. From one introvert to another. Thank you.
Oh, really? So you didn't tell me that part.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely an introvert. That's why when I saw that learned extrovert, I'm like, that's so me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
See, I would never have guessed it.
Yeah, that's me. But thank you again so much for being here. You know, we will include all the details about how to stay in touch with Lynn, how to get your MASAMI products. We'll include all that in the notes. So don't worry if you didn't catch it to write it down. We got you. And that's all the time we have today, unfortunately, but you know, we'll be back. You know, if you have reached a point in your life where you know it's time to make a change and switch it up, let's chat, let's talk, you know, let's set up a clarity call. Let's have a discussion about how we can take you from where you are to where you want to go and kind of find that light at the end of your tunnel. So again, that's all we have. We hope to see you next Thursday. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.